Hey Vogue.
Hi Vogue.
Hey, what's up, Vogue?
Hello and welcome to the Get Vogued Podcast, a sparkly addition to getvogued.com. I'm Kelsey Savin, your Australian and now London-based host, and I will be discussing all things fashion, marketing, and sustainability. I hope you're ready to get vogued. Welcome back to episode 4 of Conversations with Kelsey, a Get Vogued podcast. Today we are talking about a very topical issue for fashion students and the wider fashion industry: how to adapt to the fashion industry post-pandemic. And with me today, I have a fellow university student, Annika.
Hi, Kelsey.
Hello,
Thank you so much for... I'm good. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a great pleasure to be with you and to actually be part of your podcast. I've been looking forward to this share my thoughts with you.
Awesome. Yeah, Annika actually studies fashion psychology at the London College of Fashion as well. And we met online in a cross master's course unit earlier this year when she was based in Germany. So funnily enough, we actually haven't met face to face yet, which is quite hilarious, I find. We've only met online, which I think is pretty on trend for working in a post-pandemic world. But Annika actually came to me recently with a research project that she was working on surrounding the topic we're going to talk about today. And I thought we'd take this conversation that we had and turn it into a podcast.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you about this topic today. Mm-hmm. So if you want to know a little bit about me, I can tell you what I'm doing and then we can just dive in.
Great, absolutely.
Into the topic. Awesome. As you mentioned, we haven't met face to face yet. Everything is online.
We're planning to this week.
COVID effect. Yeah, this week definitely, hopefully. I'm studying at the University of Arts as well at London College of Fashion, and I'm doing the Master of Science there, Applied Psychology in Fashion, which is a 1-year master's program, and I'm halfway through. So it's getting intense right now. But yeah. So I'm conducting a study at the moment with the topic of the effects of COVID on the fashion industry and how the fashion industry is gonna adapt to it and which effects it has on the fashion industry itself.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I think that it's such a topical issue, and something that I think both of us as master's students are eagerly learning about how we can adapt to be the best professional versions of ourselves when we kind of enter the workforce. So understanding those skills and what kind of things we need to know for the next short-term future is definitely something we're interested in. We hope other people are interested in too.
Yeah, definitely.
So we might jump into what we perceive are the most important skills in our opinion, for our particular professions. So as I'm studying a marketing master's, I'm going to be talking about that kind of role, fashion marketing. And for me, I think the most important skill is how to communicate. And I think this is multifaceted. It's how to communicate with your co-workers, with your boss, with your target audience that you're trying to, communicate a product or a service to. I think this is definitely the most important skill in marketing. And I think that that's going to transcend into the post-COVID world even more, as we've been so disconnected in this world at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. Funny enough, communication is number one thing for me as well. I think it's such an important skill for not generally speaking the fashion industry, but just an important skill that kind of professionals and experts in that field need to have in order to do your job successfully, definitely. And also leading into the future that you will get more chances, for example, and more possibilities as well. And I also thought about, like, if you're gonna be in the fashion industry, it's super important to know how to be in a team and how to do teamwork properly and successfully, and just understanding your colleagues, your team members, and also have a great bond with them. I think it's something that is ultra important, is like the combination of great communication and great teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to talk about this further in our conversation. But I think that, learning to communicate in this new way, whether it be online or, cross country, which isn't new to a professional, sphere. It isn't new to the fashion industry, but it's been, astronomically emphasized. So I think that, that's definitely something we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Get Vogued.
Okay, moving on to our next question. What do you think makes someone in your profession successful? And I might just quickly jump in and answer this. I think being able to understand your customer 100% is extremely pertinent to a successful marketing manager. Of course, this is, goes hand in hand with communication, but I definitely think that's, understanding the customer's attitudes and purchase intentions to be able to guide them from awareness of your product or service into conversion. So that's really, textbook, marketing theory, but I think that that's definitely at the foundation of a successful person in this role. But what I've kind of noticed about successful people that I look up to is that they have a authentic, like, cross-disciplinary experience to complement them and aid them in reaching a vaster audience in a more creative way. So whether this be like fashion and art, fashion and music, events, PR, culture, I think that it's it's a really creative and innovative skill to have and to be able to apply to different situations.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Absolutely. Those points are super important. And I would add to that is also like the adaptability, that you can learn to adapt to situations you might not be used to, and also, rapidly change regarding any environment or circumstances. And again, as you said, like being able to understand the consumer is so important nowadays, which is also like part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to jump in there, but especially as the consumer is changing so much, and the focus of the consumer shifting to Generation Z, for example, they're a whole new ball game.
Absolutely.
I had to Google, and I actually do fall within the cusp of a Generation Z, which I thought was quite interesting. I definitely think your points are very, very much valid there.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting because also now in my study, I'm learning about consumer behavior and neuroscience and everything that we can use in order to understand how to, communicate with the consumer, but also lead them in the right direction. And just to understand what they need, because also the pandemic has changed a lot in our needs and wants. And I think that is super, super important. And also, as you mentioned, like communication, definitely. And I think also what makes someone very successful in the profession is just being a leader. I think it's so important not to be scared to take the first step, or to be kind of like the initiator of a new trend, of a new hype. And also just looking at different industries, that you can get so many informations from different perspectives and industries and knowledge from them. So I think in order to actually be really professional, successful in your profession, you have to have like this wide view of the world and industries, and just do what you love and take the first step.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that point, that I think traditionally the fashion industry has been quite slow to adopt new trends and quite risk adverse. And I think that the really successful professionals have really kind of taken on, they've listened to the trends of the industry. They've known their capabilities, and they've also taken risks and innovated, which I think is really connecting to the new kind of consumer who's bored by seeing the same ad on Instagram again and again. So I definitely agree with that.
Get Vogued.
So our next question is, how has our profession changed since the onset of COVID-19, and how can we give examples of how it was done before and how it was changed? Did you want to start with this?
Wow. That's such a,
it's a huge question.
Specific question, and also just to answer everything in that is super difficult. But I'll have a go, and please add anything that comes to mind. But I think just the rise of digital platforms, the way we do our jobs nowadays, and even also just studying, is everything is online. We're sitting here right now recording this podcast on Zoom, so we might have done it in person. We don't know what that could be. And I think companies are kind of getting aware of and understanding that it's not necessary to travel everywhere or to have your fashion shows, for example, in the craziest places. They're rather shifting to online and digital platforms where they can present it. And I think this is a great part as well of the industry, that we see this huge shift, and that the fashion industry is understanding we need to keep up with that digitalization in order to get everyone into taking part in it. So I think it's kind of getting more open to everyone. It's easier accessible to people who might not be able to travel to a fashion show, for example. Or you can also reach new clients, you can reach new company partners, industry partners online, instead of just visiting them. And I think it becomes more easy to network as well through the rise of digital platforms.
Yeah, I think this is super important. And actually, one of my friends is looking at doing their thesis on the traditional and the digital fashion show. And of course, the traditional is the really exclusive, only a certain amount of people, very, very important people in one room. And then it was kind of, the trends are decided in there, and it trickles down through the fashion industry. And then, of course, digitalization has democratized that entire process. And I think when we first started seeing, live runway shows, I think Burberry was one of the first to do that from the big fashion houses. We kind of saw this trend start to happen, and I think COVID has accelerated that. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And I think that the successful managers are going to continue to innovate that, and are going to continue to evolve and rethink the box when it comes to presenting fashion collections. But yeah, I think, talking about digitalization, the increase of Zoom and, MS Teams, etc., has grown astronomically. I think that, even now my mum is using it on a daily, weekly basis, whereas she was definitely not before. I think being a fashion student, I only have to think about an outfit from the waist up, so that's good. I think that's
I agree.
It's a time saver there. So but yeah, actually doing some research on how this has been affecting in industry. COVID fatigue is a serious issue, I think, for the moment. I read that KPMG started to combat Zoom fatigue among its staff by a rainbow meeting system, which color-coded calls that could be taken. One could be taken during a walk outdoors, and the other ones need to be on screen. So it really, helped the staff, combat this fatigue from sitting in one place at the same time and kind of try to keep everyone being productive.
I think also kind of, because you're always around your devices. So I'm always on my phone. I'm always near my laptop. And if you can't, you can't just switch it off and say, okay, fine, now I don't think about like work anymore, or I don't think about university or anything. It's not possible, because then you get this invitation, then you need to attend another meeting. So it's kind of like also this work-life balance that has changed completely, because you're just constantly surrounded by technology and always getting, all those messages, and it's hard to switch off at some point.
Absolutely. So. And I think, to that point that even in your downtime, particularly me, either in my downtime, I'm scrolling on Instagram or I'm watching TV, or even I've started to use a meditation app, which is on my phone. So even, it's quite bonkers how even it's for I think in the modern, the modern professional they have to work seriously hard to not be around so much technology all the time for the sake of productivity, I think. I think it's also how this can change. It's re-looking at time management and new skills, like what can be done from home. So over the summer I probably would have got an internship if it wasn't COVID, but I've started a podcast, so we were able to shift, and that's what I've kind of been doing in this time. And I saw a statistic actually that in the UK around 1 in 20 adults said they had started to learn to code since the beginning of the first lockdown in March 2020, which I think is a great statistic, and I think that's such a cool skill. It's better than learning to bake sourdough bread, in my opinion, but you need to learn. Hey,
that's also a lot of people are doing that.
It's also a great skill.
But no, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I had an internship and it got canceled because of the pandemic. And then I was also like, okay, well, what am I going to do with that free time now? Was before I started my studies. So I was like, what can we do now in those times when we can't really leave the house? And so I started to write a blog, and I'm currently working on it to publish it as well. So absolutely, like you said, you're doing your podcast, I'm going to do this blog. Fantastic. People are learning to code. I mean, it's just kind of, people are getting more, open-minded to learn new things. And I think that's probably more now than it was before.
And online. I think that the first question out of interviewers' mouths when it comes to gaining new jobs or applying for new jobs after the pandemic is, what did you do with this time? And I think if it's, if I was really productive with my time and I learned new courses and I learned these new skills, and I'm super, agile in this ever-changing environment, because even outside of COVID, the fashion industry is constantly changing. So I think that's such a key skill to have. So, I think that's definitely something that's been prompted in the industry.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Yeah, and I think we had a bit of a conversation in our previous chat about how this has kind of made us feel working and studying online all the time. And I kind of brought up the point that, we miss the natural conversation and the natural brainstorming, including the interaction with professors and colleagues, like whether it be at university or at work. And having actually gone back to university for 2 days this week, actually, it's crazy to see the difference of what an in-person conversation can actually achieve. I think that there's never going to be a place in work where we're 100% online. I hope not. So I think that, the technology would have to be really good at simulating a real experience, but I hope that that's not the case.
No, definitely. Yeah, but also in terms of like delivering anything like lectures or something, I really had to adapt to it, because I was coming from my bachelor's, and bachelor study, and that was all face to face. We never had an online class or anything, and then I come into this, and it just immediately starts with online classes, and I was like, okay, well, how am I going to focus? How am I going to really take the best out of this? Because I think it challenges you to really focus on the things you're learning and actually taking stuff away from that. And same with me. I also went back to university yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was also just like seeing people and being in a room of your classmates you've never met before. I was like, well, I've never seen these faces before. But it's so nice, because then you can also get a feeling for why they are doing it and what their interests are. And I think that's a lot that's going missing right now, is kind of getting new insights from other perspectives as well. So a lot is changing.
Absolutely. And I think it's a lot of mental discipline to really be able to sit in one place at one time and learn 5 different classes. So I think that I really take my hat off to everybody who's studying at the moment. Although I do think it is a great time to be studying, because you lockdown, you really can sit down and focus, because there isn't anything else to do. But I definitely think it does present its own set of unique challenges as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that we'll chat about our next set of questions, which are, what are the skills we had to develop or improve to successfully work or study during the pandemic? And I think we've answered a few of these questions. But for me, I mean, we met on a Teams call. Gosh, I think in January. No, it was last year in maybe October.
It was last year, October, I think.
Time's irrelevant right now. I think meeting new people that you haven't had a chance to build an offline rapport with, and they don't know your working style or how you communicate, and working through a project like that with a strict timeline that we had, I think that takes a particular skill to work to have good teamwork online. Again, this is not new to it was not brought on by the pandemic, but it has been emphasized as well. So I think that being able to set agendas and work efficiently towards achievable goals, splitting off and working with some team members and then coming back together, I think that's definitely a key skill that I certainly have had to develop. I think the other ones is talking about a work-life balance and boundaries in home, is learning how to multitask with all this technology. For me, I love to go for a walk and listen to a podcast and write notes and come back and super energized. I think that's something I definitely will come back, after the pandemic and continue to do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. About like the teams and collaboration online. I think it's also super difficult to get to know people before you actually start a project, because if you're in person, you will always have a talk first and you will get to know each other, and it's more about like just getting to know the personality types that you're working with, so you can get the most out of it, and also understand what people might dislike and what you can actually work with. So it's all about this interpersonal connection that I think is kind of like missing when we're talking about Zoom or Teams meetings, just the organizational part as well. I totally agree with you there. It's like it's such a hustle to just sit down and actually go point by point through what you actually have to do, and then also switching it up and just focus on yourself and your well-being is very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to bring a little bit of theory into this, which I hate that I'm doing this, but I think that everybody knows Tuckman's model of what is it? Now it's performing, norming, storming, all that, trying to get through the stages of teamwork in an online space where you kind of need to have a little bit of tension and grit to actually come out to a better conclusion for the, you hope, that's hard to do online. And I think it's hard to, have the soft skills to communicate, to have a, I don't want to say argument, but, a great conversation to actually nut out where the solution is. And I think that that's definitely a skill that I've definitely had to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the empathy and just a greater understanding of people, because I think that you're more inclined to probably overstep boundaries when you're only having them online. That's what I noticed for myself. I was like, of course, you always want to do what you feel is right, but then you have the team that you need to work with and also understand what they want. And, just combining several opinions into one great project is super difficult if you don't know how that person actually behaves or how they are besides university, because outside of university, many people are very different. And just that understanding of that, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you.
Get Vogued.
Absolutely. Okay, so what support has been provided to us in the development of these new knowledge and skills, and what do we think is the most beneficial? And I think this is pertaining maybe to our university experience, but I think we can also apply this to a working experience as well. So on my part, I've definitely engaged well with online talks and panels. I think it's a great way to learn industry knowledge. I don't think it's going to replace traditional networking. I think that being able to go to a networking event and really converse with the people you want to, express your ideas, understand theirs, and actually again build a rapport with them. I think that you can make much more of a memorable imprint of yourself. But I think that this is such a great way to continue that growth of knowledge, of industry knowledge, which can sometimes be lacking in traditional education. So yeah, I think the other thing is being able to work from anywhere in the world. As we know, you were doing the first half of your course from Germany, and I have been studying a little bit from Australia, but mainly in London. So I think it's being able to set up a framework and to set up the right kind of tools to be able to work with different time zones as well.
Yeah. Oh my God, so much confusion.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think we've kind of chatted about, online talks, and I think that leads into short courses as well and skill development, which we've chatted about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, like the online talks, as you mentioned. I agree with you there, absolutely. And I think also what I learned is basically because they threw me into cold water, and I just had to learn it myself. And especially because I'm studying psychology, we have to do a lot of research, a lot of studies. And I think, just getting to know those programs that I'm designing the studies with, and then have to analyze the data, is something that, I would have hoped we would have had more support on this, because it's really, really difficult. But on the other hand, I've noticed myself that I learn better if I teach it myself, or at least, YouTube videos, great support for everything you need to know. So I think it's like, it's like just this independence, kind of like what I've learned is that, I am studying something, but it's still something I have to teach myself as well.
Absolutely. I think that's such a great way to build on your skills. You've got the foundation from university, you'll be able to get industry experience, and then you're also arming yourself with extra skills that you've learned. So I think that's a great lesson to all.
Get Vogued.
I think the next question is quite a big, loaded one. what's our opinion of how we think the fashion world will change post-pandemic, if at all. Of course, we're not qualified trend forecasters, nor can we tell the future. But there's some key trends and things that we definitely can look at, and I'll touch on a few of them. It's not a secret that the tech is future. Tech and data-driven technologies such as blockchain, AI, VR, AR, etc. People have been talking about this for some years now, but we're actually seeing some really exciting applications of this. And I think that in such a disconnected time, technology is really helping us to connect to one another again. The fact that you and I have never met, but we've been, I would consider you my friend, and we've only spoken online, I think is incredible. I think it's definitely a huge disruption to the industry. In saying that, from a consumer perspective, people are yearning for togetherness, and that's going to be paramount for marketing strategies. We already chatted about, changing consumer trends, which are more health aligned and wellness aligned, and that's going to be integrated into the new consumer. So I think that's, there's definitely some key trends that are here to stay.
Absolutely. I mean, I just read the State of Fashion by McKinsey, and it's super interesting. It's a podcast, and they talked about like how this has been like the worst year for the fashion industry since the beginning of data collection about the industry itself. And I think many companies and many players in that industry are kind of realizing what they need to change in order to be successful in the future, because our consumer behavior has changed a lot during this pandemic. And I think they're beginning to realize that they actually need to put, not only let their words speak, but show their actions. And that is the big part in sustainability. I mean, the word is overused, I would say, but it's such an important thing in the industry itself, because fashion industry is so polluting, and we need the change. And many companies claim that they're sustainable, claim that they're ethical and green, but their fuzzy definition of what makes them really sustainable, and no one is actually controlling and seeing how they are sustainable. And that's due to the lack of transparency, and they don't really communicate their goals and their targets to the target audience, for example. And that's what the fashion industry needs to fix in the future. And I think it's also beginning, I mean, we've had sustainability as a topic for a very long time already. But only now I think consumers are trying or are beginning to question the actual state of the industry, and want to know more, and want to have the transparency to research about questions, and just in general understand what is happening to kind of like better in the future. And I think also as part of sustainability, it's I think the trend of collaborative consumption, as we call it, is so talking about everything pre-owned or resale or renting is getting huge, because if we're talking about like the pandemic, many consumers and customers have started to question what they really need, and they have become like those Marie Kondo's life to organize their lives and to organize what they really want, what they have at home, and they just want to declutter their lives. And I think collaborative consumption in that way is an awesome movement, and is an awesome part of the fashion industry at the moment, because it gives us the opportunity to have access to what we want, but maybe not need at the moment. And for example, talking about the car industry, that's exactly where it's leading right now, because the car industry is, they're selling like really, really bad at the moment. And that's also because people just understand to have a car is a lot of responsibility, and it's also very costly. So people are questioning what they really need in life. And that's the same with fashion, taking the pandemic now. I mean, many people are wearing jogging pants and I don't know what at home. So I think that is definitely, you know, it's just becoming less important to own things. The ownership is decreasing.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, talking about collaborative consumption and, you know, the shared economy, you know, I actually read an article, it was a paper, actually, a white paper called Neo Luxury 2025. And it was talking about, you know, luxury fashion, you know, between now and 2025. Actually, it was a German paper that I translated. So I'll definitely have to share that with you. And they you know, they interviewed top decision makers, you know, within the luxury fashion industry, and 75% of them agreed on the thesis that, you know, established luxury companies are required to rethink, adapt, or even radically develop their existing business models. And they actually found 7 key luxury trends within this. So number 1 was the sharing and the second life business models, exactly as you have said. Number 2 was the digitalization of luxury, including digital detox counter trends. So I think this is super interesting, as we talked about, you know, constantly being surrounded by technology and bombarded by technology. You know, I think that the digital detox and coming away from that is definitely something that, you know, marketing managers, or actually the whole industry, needs to look at. And I'm sure you saw, like, the luxury brand Loewe. They had a newspaper for their to debut their latest collection, which I thought was a really interesting way to present it. And then Bottega Veneta, quit social media. You know, whether these are PR moves or not, I think that it's definitely jumping on this digital detox trend. Number 3 was, you know, the advancing customer need for individualization, customization, and co-creation. So, you know, the Gen Z consumer and even millennials and actually the wider audiences, you know, are looking less into ownership and more into, you know, experiences, but also into, you know, if they are going to own, you know, consume something, it has to be really special and really deeply personal. So I think that that co-creation part is definitely a key trend.
Yeah, it's really.
You go.
Sorry. No, it's such a good point. It's funny because we talked about that in class 2 days ago, and it was about, like, individualization, how important that is, because you create a bigger emotional attachment to your clothing piece or to your bag or something. If it's individualized, and also if you have a part in making it, it's called the IKEA Effect.
I was just about to say that.
So if you actually do it yourself, you're more likely, first of all, to spend more money on it, and second, to keep it longer and to build an emotional attachment. And that plays into sustainability, because, you know, buy less and choose well is something that is preached in the industry, and it just says that the more emotions go into a clothing piece, for example, the more likely you are to keep it for the rest of your lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And building on that, I think that the more likely you are to preach to other people about it, and then, you know, you have a word of mouth effect from there. So I think it's a great movement in the fashion industry. Of course, the next trend, health and mindfulness. You know, we've already chatted about this. I am using a meditation app called Insight Timer. It's fantastic. I definitely will link it in the show notes. So I wonder if we can see some collaborations there in, you know, a fashion and meditation space. Anyway, watch the space.
Absolutely, definitely. I mean, it's already, you know, just talking about digitalization with, like, Bottega Balenciaga, I think it was, like creating clothes online for Sims, so you could dress your Sims in like very high end clothes. So I'm sure there will come something with mindfulness and fashion.
Absolutely. I think we can have a whole nother podcast to do with tech and fashion, and my second episode was about that. But I think talking about Balenciaga actually debuted their fashion show through a video game that they created. I've talked previously about Alexander McQueen being a blockchain integrated label. They've introduced their label. There's so many exciting things that are happening. I think we can also have another conversation about the perceptions of luxury fashion in these spaces for another day. But another trend was, the luxury casualization and the democratization to, public luxury. And I think this is definitely the jogging pants and everything like that. They're still around. I've always been actually a very anti athleisure wear when it comes to luxury fashion, but I've actually jumped on board with the trend now, and I bought myself a Pangaea set, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and I'm one of them now.
Proud of you.
I know, thank you. I've made the movements. But yeah, the last one was focusing on lean luxury and conscious renunciation models, so like focus on consumption and really trying to buy less and choose well, as you said. So where are we at? I think another question is, what would we like to see in the fashion sector at the moment? And mine was just a really short answer, and I see you've got a big paragraph here, which I can't wait to dive into. I mean, mine was just, saying for companies to start practicing what they preach, really. We've seen time and time again of, environmental profit and loss statements saying, will it achieve X by this date? And the next one is achieving the exact same thing by just a pushed out date. So I think, actually putting some money where their mouth is definitely where I would be excited to see the fashion industry go, especially in terms of sustainability and also wider purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that. My aspect touches on that completely, because I'm talking about, it's also because I'm trying to be an expert in sustainability. That's like my goal I've made myself. That's why I'm talking a lot about this. But I would love to see just the transparency and sustainability grow in the fashion industry, and actually be controlled in an environment that does not allow things to happen, like greenwashing, for example. And I think this is also coming from both industry perspective and consumer perspective, is that consumers are demanding more transparency. They're demanding sustainable garments. They want to know who made their clothes, for example. And the industry is shifting towards that. And as you said, it would be nice to see that they actually practice what they preach. And I think on basis of that is important to put rules in place that actually control that. And I think that is the job of the governments, and also I think the companies acting in the fashion industry are also, they should play the role of educating as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, funnily enough, we I think you may have been on the industry talk too recently with the head of sustainability at Gani. She had a team of 4 that they solely focus on their sustainability efforts. And of course, they realized that they weren't a sustainability born brand, and that they're learning along the way. But it was super interesting to see that they had a whole team dedicated just to this, and that's one route that a fashion company can take.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And also I think you were in the same talk about the fashion revolution by Ursula de Castro. And I think what you said, it was very interesting, is that kind of, the consumers are demanding it, so the industry is shifting, but it's not the consumer's job to demand it, actually. It should be the other way around. It should be the industry who's only offering the options of sustainable garments. And that's where the problem lies, is that they can still choose from so many other options, and they always choose the more cost effective, I would say. And it's great to see Gani. I'm actually wearing the tops from Gani, but it's great to see that they're putting teams in place to actually control this and to make sure that they're keeping up with it. Because I think nowadays no company can go without any part of like corporate social responsibility or transparency, sustainability. Everything needs to have the place in the company itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you touch on the point that, a non-sustainable option for a consumer is mainly based on, cost effectiveness or price. And I think that companies are not solely focusing their strategies on profit anymore. I think that they're seeing that, sustainability, purpose, all these like key mega trends, they're not going away, and they are being demanded. And I think that that's what is going to give companies longevity, and it's going to be the smarter business decision in the long run. So, seeing into the future, I think that that's definitely what would make a marketing manager or any key professional successful in the role as well.
Get Vogued.
Another question that we had, and I think we're overlapping a bit, but it's good to kind of touch all of our bases. So how do we see our profession changing or evolving in the future? And as we've kind of touched on before, I definitely think that innovation is going to be at the epicenter of a fashion marketing, manager or officer, etc. Whether that be in terms of flexible business models like direct to consumer, subscription, rentals, all of those key trends that I just listed before. I think that's definitely going to be extremely pertinent. I think, reinventing the communication of consumers' new values is going to be definitely key, and keeping your ear to the ground in terms of what's happening with trends and what's happening with consumers, what they're interested in, and how to apply that in a way that's really aligned with and on brand with the company that you're working for and communicating for. Furthermore, I think becoming more intertwined with the technology, as we've said before, AI, VR, blockchain, chatbots, etc. I think doing that in a really conscious way and a really thoughtful way is going to be, the strategies going forward. And as you've said before, marketing the entire supply chain with transparency and not just the brand and the end product as it's been done traditionally.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on all those points. I mean, it's so important for, it would be great to see that everything is going to be implemented in the future. But I think we're on a good way there. And yeah, talking like from a fashion psychology perspective, I would say, as you already mentioned, just understanding the consumer itself, because it's becoming more important to understand the underlying mechanisms of consumer behavior, just to see how they rapidly respond to changes in the society, in the environment, and just to understand their expectations as well. So all about consumer, I think that's going to be a big part in the future. And I think talking about like how my profession is going to change, I mean, I haven't worked in fashion psychology field yet, but I think there's a bigger need for it actually, because we need specialists to understand how we function. And I think it will also give fashion companies a greater insight to how they should act and how they should respond to certain needs. And so yeah, I think there's going to be a bigger demand for fashion psychologists. And but we'll see about that, what happens in the future.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that that kind of rich data that you would get from, you know, a fashion psychologist is something that I think fashion marketers are so hungry for. And I think that, you know, that goes hand in hand with, you know, coming back and communicating those messages that they are wanting to hear. So absolutely, I think that fashion psychology as a you know, as a role will definitely play more of a you know, key role in the future for sure. We think. We hope.
I hope at least.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that you know, I think that we're coming to a place where there are certain skills that are needed, and I think we're going to make our own roles. And I think that you know, there's definitely a place for you know, multi-skilled and multi-disciplinary people, as I said before, you know, in the space, and I think that can only be more and more valuable.
Yeah, I agree.
So just to get specific with the skills of our profession, before we wrap up, you know, I think we had a chat about what we think are our most important skills. And at first we said, you know, definitely communication, but just to dive a little bit deeper, you know, I think definitely for me in the marketing field, you know, we said reflecting the attitudes, values and behaviors of the modern consumer in a new and authentic way that's on brand. But if we're talking about like hard and soft skills, I think I always see these memes on LinkedIn to do with, say, social media marketers, who, you know, their required skills are, it's like 100 points long, and it's definitely trying to put, you know, like PR in there, and you know, Adobe skills, and, you know, just so many different things that you kind of need to pick up, especially as like a one-woman show or a one-man show. But, you know, all I can say is, you know, the more skills you know, the better. So definitely the online courses are very, very excellent to do. So yeah, in terms of like hard skills, you know, social media, knowledge of like back data from Google Analytics, web development, user experience, SEO, omni-channel integration, you know, using data for setting achievable KPIs and that sort of thing. You know, I think it's taking traditional marketing skills and just bringing it into this new sphere. And then in terms of soft skills, we've definitely talked about, you know, the consumer-centric, you know, new direction of you know, fashion, and so the communication between sales, product people, and product development, you know, having creativity, listening, being able to present and have emotional intelligence. So I think that can all be wrapped up into good communication skills, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like you said, I think nowadays it's becoming more and more important to understand and analyze data. So as you mentioned, like hard skills, everything that has to do with data analytics and stuff like this, I think it's super important to just, you know, because it gives you the most important insights into everything you want to know. So I can only agree with you on that point. And soft skills, definitely. I mean, what I'm learning a lot in my course is that I need to have critical thinking. So that is just the number one skill I'm going to take out of this, and that I also hope, you know, future employees in this sector will have, is just like critical thinking about everything, basically, because nothing is as you suppose it to be. So and just understand what are the underlying mechanisms of everything that you are handling with right now. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on these points.
Great. And what I really love to do is kind of go to roles that are available, especially on like the BOF, like the Business of Fashion Careers, or you know, any kind of job portal, and look at the key skills that they're looking at for the moment. And firstly, I can say the job roles are changing every day. So, you know, whether it be like affiliate marketing, integrated marketing, social media, influencing, research, psychology, etc. There's so many different things, and this is why I you know, kind of bring to the point that you can kind of make your own role with a unique set of skills. You know, But I wanted to pull out a few words from this one ad, which is a director of integrated marketing campaigns for Tory Burch based in New York. And I won't read the whole ad because it's extremely long. But the first thing it said, your core skills you need to be adaptable, and you need to know when to be patient and when to push. And I think that comes into emotional intelligence and intuitive, communication. Another one was an entrepreneurial spirit, takes initiative and doesn't wait for direction.
Exactly.
So I think that, there's another really, there's lots of specific skills to this role, including teamwork, leadership, keeping aligned with the brand values. I think there's lots of different things that people can look at, and I think that's a great way to start of assessing if there are any skills you need to learn or take on board. And I think the main kind of thing there is agility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think it's also a great thing to actually look at the job adverts and then see what they require, because I think now more than ever they ask for way more skills than they did in the past, because in the past it was, be a good team worker and know how to communicate. And now they actually have really tough requirements, I would say, because there's so many people out there who are actually skilled and who know what they are doing, for example. But in terms of talking about emotional intelligence, not many people can actually say that they know how to, be a good team worker or be a good leader or how to take initiative. So absolutely, I think it's super interesting to see just what jobs require nowadays. And to understand what companies are looking for, because it also tells us about the company, how it shifts, what they're actually trying to promote within the company itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the job market, as we probably already know, is going to be quite competitive after this period. So I think that, learning these key skills now and knowing, how you rank up against the requirements is a very actionable thing everybody who's listening to this can do. So without further ado, I think that's an excellent place to wrap up. I wanted to say a huge thank you to Annika for spending the past, hour now with us. We'd love to get your thoughts on this episode and where you think the a fashion career is going, and any thoughts you had on our opinions. So you're welcome to reach out to Annika or I. We'll leave our contact information in the show notes as well. So thank you very much, Annika.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone who's listening. I hope we gave you some good insights into the basic things that going to happen after this pandemic. And thank you so much, Kelsey, for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Get Vogued. And that's the end of the latest episode of Conversations with Kelsey at Get Vogued Podcast. As always, you can reach out to me at getvogued.com or on Instagram at Kelsey_Savin or at get.vogued. Did you know we also have a YouTube and Facebook page with the handle Get Vogued by Kelsey Savin? As always, I'd also love to hear your thoughts on this or any episode, so feel free to reach out to me. Until next episode, stay sparkly.